Hello, Ivy here. Welcome to the Royal Hunger Games 2021. The teams are ready for another year of searching, and then finding, and then hunting down their food source. Sometimes their findings can be used for bartering purposes, which enable them to have access to better quality food on the table, and to hopefully give them a reasonable lifestyle. Things have become a little austere for some of those groups since their major income generator decided to improve their lifespan by relocating to another continent. The previous users of the service treated them badly and took them for granted, expected all food sources to be free and on demand without any thought or consideration of changing business needs and possibly consideration to an increase of the actual workforce. The customers continued to want more for less and had no regard to the impact of their demands on the provider of the said food sources. By using the main themes of the books and the film franchise of the Hunger Games, I hope to make you smile a little, whilst at the same time recognising the failing society which is growing here on Skull Island, otherwise known as Shutter Island and officially known as the UK. Just like the books and the film franchise, the ruling classes keep their transgressions hidden by a series of distraction. It is a place built on class divisions. In my opinion, all the various categories I am using as examples in this podcast reflect those divisions, and each one is fighting for relevance, and if necessary, will destroy anyone who gets in the way, and is perceived to be changing a way of life that has existed for as long as they can remember. Let me introduce the players in each category. Group 1, the British Royal Family. Monarchy. Activity type, unknown, but similar to grifters. Right-wing figurehead family. Group 2, media barons. Newspaper owners and their royal reporter rota team. This group also includes TV media personnel. Activity type, propaganda team for the British Royal Family. Group 3, aristocracy. Activity, unknown, but appears like a fake society and a gene pool for the British Royal Family. Group 4, national government. Activity, to ensure that the above groups all continue to exist and to try and replicate the Hunger Games approach on the rest of the world, where a few countries have grouped together for access to shared markets in a similar style in some ways to the UK in its isolationist approach beyond its borders. It is not working out quite as much or in the way the UK would have liked. Having withdrawn all its toys from the groups who want to play by the consensus approach, the country is beginning to be a little worse for wear at the moment. No matter. One of the distraction topics to get all the above groups talking is to focus on the one centre of worker bees in the country who have started to exercise independent thought in recent years and to provide their services and products on a global stage, whilst retaining their mental health and have the freedom to expand their workforce for the greater good and to provide universal service on a global scale, whilst increasing risk to their health and safety. On the 8th of January 2020, this Centre of Excellence declared its aims and objectives, and by the end of March 2020, they set up a new office on another continent. It is doing very well, and it has been only a year. Meanwhile, back on Skull Island, the various groups have become apoplectic. As a result, a new group has emerged. Entering the final group on this list is Group 5, the Keyboard Warriors. Activity: to spend 23.5 hours every day searching for things they can blame the global entrepreneurs for, to invent new theories about their lifestyle and whether or not they are actually human. At the same time, they pretend to show allegiance to the British royal family, but the reality is any Caucasian figurehead family would be expressed as their ideal, without actually doing anything tangible to prolong their existence or the number of charities which on paper are linked to the British royal family in some way. The main purpose of this group is to generate hate and spread the hatred they have created between themselves, as it is their food source, and when none is readily available, create something and run with it. Following in the footsteps of the carnival of clown experts, who work in a vacuum at the best of times and exist purely on lies and hate-inciting activity. But in recent times, their food supply is so low now, it is not worth including them as a category. They are on the way to becoming extinct. So there is little point including them in the Hunger Games tournament of 2021. The Keyboard Warriors feel they are a cut above that group anyway. I mean, they make diagrams and use crayons and things, really detailed. They spend money obtaining documentation on a range of things, claiming it to be proof of their various theories. Their hunger is huge. But it must be said, their food sources are suspect. And as these sources are never shared with others in the tournament, they may go in the same direction as the so-called Carnival of Clowns experts. I suspect law enforcement is waiting in the wings for one or two in both categories. All participants in the Hunger Games want to win for their category, but are mindful of throwing the odd carrot in the direction of the other groups, because they recognise, without each other in place, supporting the other members of the tournament, none would survive, and would go the way of the Carnival of Clown experts, and possibly soon to be joined by the Keyboard Warriors. The tournament is only considered special if the nation's cameras are present, and naturally the news editions every day tell everyone how wonderful they are, and how wicked it is for the other groups to get up and leave them in the lurch, and set up shop on another continent. Every day there are multiple articles written and reported on by everyone in the tournament, in the hope that it generates enough income to put food on their tables the following week. The fly in their ointment is that the international media are present too, and after watching the antics that go on in this tournament over the last 5 years, and to see the casualties along the way, they report accurately on the hunger of these people and their groups. The lack of vision, as the nation sinks further near the oblivion drainage system, is sad to see. But the international media focus on the universal service being provided elsewhere, and report on those activities. Everyone is more than well fed. No one is hungry. Skull Island still believe that they are on the right path, and feel justified that their isolationist approach is the correct way to move forward, and everyone else is wrong. They profess to dislike the taste of the Sussex's chew toys, for that is what they were to these groups, but yet insist on reporting on and trying to copy the look of the Sussexes without having the depth, or the knowledge, or the skill set to produce the end product. The PR that they give the Sussexes every day by showing their hateful mindset about everything that they do is becoming old news now, and is providing less food on the table for them. Extinction or judicial action awaits in the wings. Not everyone plays by the rules. It has come to light that the monarch lobbied for a change in the law to hide her private wealth, secured exemptions using transparency law. This figurehead family secured a wide range of public-funded grants seemingly with ease, despite having great wealth on a number of publicly available account categories. The UK public are not that fortunate. Members of the public have to provide minute details, equivalent to how rusty your knife and fork is due to lack of use, and any food shopping considered by the authorities to be a luxury item, etc. Some people have to undergo tests to see if they can walk a few metres, just to determine whether or not a claimant is disabled enough to garner extra funding, etc. Yet here we are, with a family who is one of the wealthiest families in the world, receiving public assistance, and much of their personal wealth is not made public. And 2 of the large publicly funded accounts, they are not charged tax. The monarch and her eldest son, Prince Charles, make voluntary contributions, which is very, very handy indeed. In my mind, this family is not hungry for anything else but power and self-preservation. And by protecting all the other groups I have mentioned, their future remains more secure. The day will come when the general public of the UK will have the opportunity to vote on whether or not the country needs a monarchy. I do not think it will take many votes for the monarchy to be regarded as an out-of-date emblem. It is a mystery to me why UK media are reporting on the fact that the British royal family have lost so much income due to COVID, as if they are trying to soften the blow when the government decides to give out more money again. It is a fact that the sovereign grant never decreases year on year. It either remains the same or it increases. Any increases are based on the previous 2 years' income generated. Strange how COVID has not been officially recognised until March 2020 in the UK, when lockdowns began, but yet the conversation is being interspersed with so-called financial difficulties being experienced by the family due to COVID. I am at a loss to see how less visitors to various royal properties and many staff laid off as a result has caused the British royal family any hardship. They have done less public engagements as a result, so transport costs and associated costs attached to these visits to various parts of the UK and abroad should have been less too. Venues have not had high numbers of staff present, so their costs would have reduced too alongside the fall in income. You will see from the references I give at the end of this article and the podcast, certain members of the British royal family seem to take an awful lot of journeys by private helicopter. Not all visits were work-related, it seems. There was also a very high cost of the use of the royal train. Visiting places where the areas concerned made it clear that they were not wanted at a time of a pandemic. Not least because those officials' priority was keeping their constituents safe, not entertaining for PR purposes. Whilst we are discussing the hunger for power, let's not forget how the Queen recently lobbied the Scottish ministers for climate law exemption. The result is that the Queen, aka British royal family, are the only people in the country not bound by green energy rules. There was an article confirming this in The Guardian on the 28th of July 2021. In November 2020, Prince Charles spoke at the World Economic Forum. The subject was the 10 actions we must take to drive green recovery. I have given links to all these various events and websites in the article. On the 10th of January 21, Prince Charles unveiled an Earth Charter to boost green business. Remember, the British royal family are exempt. Prince Charles was speaking at the Green Horizon Summit, organised by the City of London Corporation, supported by the World Economic Forum and others. On the 16th of May this year, Prince Charles was pictured planting a tree in the grounds of Windsor Castle. As you would expect, an article and photographs appeared in the Daily Mail on that date. Prince William launched his Earthshot £15 million prize. Details of this is on the website earthshotprize.org. Again, details are listed in the article. Clean our air, build a waste-free world, fix our climate, protect, restore nature, revive our oceans. The name is reference to the Moonshot space program associated with President Kennedy, JF Kennedy. Note the USA link. There will be 5 winners a year from 2021 to 2030. Yes, this family is very hungry, prepared to do whatever they need to do, use various people to bring about the desired result, and will save themselves at all costs. Seems to be a high number of people prepared to fall on their sword in the name of Queen and country, even when they are not the ones who warrant the attention most of the time. But on current contenders, this group is high up there with being very hungry indeed. Back to Group 2, the media group, printed and TV gossip entities. This group always appear with metaphorical foam at the mouth, straining the leash for the only members of the British royal family who are self-financing and who moved away to another continent for their health and safety, and yet media in the UK is out for their actual blood. Vampires have no lead on this group. To watch them salivate and pore over salacious gossip concerning the 2 people who they do not pay for, but ignore all the rest of the royal family that they do pay for. And it is not just senior royals who taxpayers fund in one way or another. It is like a whole community of cousins and spouses and distant relatives living in properties and expenses paid by the taxpayer. Media barons are not interested in that. They are hungry for clickbait income to continue, and the biggest earner is hate. Then they are happy to create the hunger for hate incitement within their masses and to profit off the metaphoric blood spilt. Daytime programming, which requires limited preparation, talking about the same people most of the time. Basically a group of gossipers masquerading as expert witnesses or professionals, spouting negative, hate-inciting rhetoric based on no fact-checking at all. These are the equivalent of the slave owners of history having a family meeting discussing how they can force the slaves to return, along with the escalating types of punishment for leaving the UK, and worst of all in their minds, showing a complete disregard for the British royal family and its tradition. Walking away from duty, apparently. The last time I watched a daytime programme was when a panel of former TV shining lights, now forgotten by the TV industry, in fact have been forgotten for quite a few years, returning to daytime programmes over and over again to speak in a disparaging way about the Sussexes. I will never forget how one of them stated something and all the others agreed. The statement that left the one panel member's mouth was to say that they owned Meghan's womb and that they had every right to demand a photo session on the steps of the Lindo wing. The sense of entitlement and blatant statements about owning was a direct link to master and slave mentality. This category is a baying mob, tied up with the herd mentality that I spoke about in a previous podcast, and moving fast up the 7 stages of the hate model that I also mentioned in that podcast and gave details in an accompanying article. And equally, the 5-stage model of prejudice and discrimination, both mentioned in the podcast, looking at herd mentality and the dangerous stages of hate and how it can progress to the removal of their target of hate completely. This group is very hungry. The printed media group are the conduit between the British royal family wishes and the start of the implementation into practice crew. The TV networks then run with it and believe themselves to be protected by freedom of speech. They are wrong. The day will come when many in the media will be confronted with notice of legal action to be made against them as individuals. The same applies to the royal reporters, who equally believe that they are protected. The chances of the British royal family or media barons being taken to court is unlikely. Not impossible, but unlikely in most cases. Those that work hard to increase the bounty on the heads of the Sussexes are not protected by any law. The chatting over the garden fence style of dialogue does not protect them from the law. Time is running out for far more individuals than the general population realises. Just because the UK government uses some of the same phrases that these various groups use does not mean that they are safe. International law is there for a reason. The running total in the Hunger Games so far is as follows. Group 1, the British royal family, are very hungry, but use others to find and collect their food. Their hunger builds from their hatred of any prospect of a change in their fortunes, but they send others out to collect the food. Others being those in Group 2. Part of that group use the rhetoric in their written words to stoke the fires of hate and hide behind the nuance of words, but the undertone is there, and increasingly it is no longer undertones but blatant. The TV crew, who find themselves having to search for money in their bank accounts. Things are not going well on that front. Because of that, they are driven to generate income at any way that they can. So they continue to be hateful because they have found that that pays. What they do not seem to realise is that when the law catches up with them, they will be reminded that they are regarded as self-employed for tax purposes in many cases, and as such, they need to be able to stand up and be counted for their behaviour and wording when asked under oath in the future. Group 3, the aristocrats, are hungry, but don't eat very much. And what they do eat, they neither go out and buy it or cook it. They have people for that kind of thing, don't you know? They do not even have to play pretend diplomat or pretend to know about and lead on high-profile projects. In fact, they do not even need to turn up for photo ops with fake smiles and hug black children, or wheel out an obligatory black friend from a decade ago to appear down with the people. The aristocrats just exist. Entering into the Hunger Games is just a marvellous opportunity for a new outfit and to catch up with people at the right strata in society. The purpose is never about the food on offer, but in the business networking that can be made. Group 4, government, needs groups 1, 2 and 3. The hunger is there, but not voracious. There is a confidence in knowing that all 4 groups need each other. So the dialogue and the games centre around the main topics that they all need to agree on, when and where, etc. The rest of it is just showboating. None of the top 4 groups can manage without watching the backs of the others. Group 1, the British royal family, is the most hungry, and in fact is the weakest link, because it needs all of the others 3 for it to stay in place. Group 2, the media barons, will be safer than the rest of their group, and over time, when things get really hot, journalists are expendable, unless the owners of News Corporation know more about their journalists than the journos know about the owners. In practice, owners of news corporations last a lot longer than any journalist, something many of the royal reporters seem to forget. At the moment, there is a lot of activity of deleting or amending articles online from recent years. One day, possibly in a courtroom, some of them are going to be confronted with a few of the articles that they put together, and subsequently some years later believe that they have erased them from memory. They are so out of touch with technology. As the saying goes, they are going to learn soon. Group 5, the keyboard warriors, are becoming very hungry, or rather they are becoming greedy. Hatred drives them, but hatred and its production in its many forms online is very lucrative for people who most of which never earned that kind of money before. Some of the accounts on social media are truly horrifying. I make myself believe that the powers that be know of their existence and have been collecting data. The people that exist in this online world of hate groups feed off each other, grow with each other, and in some cases grow into what they believe to be leadership roles, which in turn give them even more of a status, and feeds the hate machinery which runs through these structures. Over time, as explained in that podcast about herd mentality, some of these groups go on to commit serious hate crimes. After 5 years of this hate baiting, or the Sussexes, some are moving towards the higher stages of the models I mentioned earlier. Further details of such groups and the models of hate groups are in articles I have mentioned before, and are also listed on many research teams shown discussing the dangers. The FBI use a range of academic models in their toolkit of assessing dangers, including the ones I've mentioned. I regard the group in category 5, the keyboard warriors, to be very hungry. But they are like the people serving in the forces. These are the frontline troops, and therefore there are more of them, and as such, most of these will be targeted first, and dealt with under the law. Their level of hate has grown from the group mentality and dynamics. The Sussexes are not seen as people, just a target for hate. And all people and organisations who they believe, like the Sussexes, will feature in their heads as targets of hate, with a view to changing their minds regarding working with the main target of hate. This group of people are led by hatred. These are the ones who pay money for intel on their targets, in the hope that they will use investigative methods that all other countries' law enforcements have never come across before, or understood it like these keyboard warriors. It is this sense and type of reasoning that makes them dangerous and makes them likely candidates to work their way up the hate models we have discussed in the past. One by one, they will be found out, and each one will use Karen or Ken type tears to explain away their activity. Just watch and see it all play out. Group 1 just want to stay in power, grifters through and through. They just spout phrases and topics that their pals in the other three groups have decided are the buzzwords this year. But none of Group 1 have any understanding of such matters and have no clue or interest to learn about said topic, so never in a million years could they lead on anything. They look down on the people of the UK. They have laws changed to suit them. They can discriminate in peace. They can enter all manner of unsavoury characters, some of whom are members of the British royal family, and still do, and it appears lawmakers turn a blind eye to the victims. They have no shortage of anything during this pandemic, and they don't even need to use their own funds to live. And whilst many in the UK are financially worse off due to austerity measures, and now leaving the EU and all that comes with that decision does not affect the British royal family. They still travelled abroad when others could not. They still can ignore the laws that govern the topics that they preach on to the rest of us, but ignore it in their own private lives. We all know the topics. Royalists always like to talk about duty and how Prince Harry should be stripped of everything because he did not adhere to duty, etc., etc. I can think of more than one example from the carnival of clown experts who have difficult relationships with their family members, including a parent or both. I note none of them had a problem leaving home and starting families elsewhere. For those who may have a parent living with them now, the difference is they had choices. Children born into the British royal family do not have a choice, so the talk of duty is nonsense. They were not conscripted, kicking and screaming into the family. They were deliberately created and brought into the world to support the older sibling. That is not duty. If they want to leave, they are told they cannot leave the family home. If they escape, people are sent to make them return. And if that does not work, they create a dangerous situation which will have a high chance of making them return. Any home where you are not allowed to leave is not a family home. Anyone who leaves who is then chased and called a traitor is not coming from a family who love you and wants you to return. Anyone who creates danger for those who leave by stopping security without warning and giving away details of your location on 2 occasions is not a good parent. Winners of the Hunger Games 2021 is Harry and Meghan and the formation of Archewell. 1 year on, and this foundation is growing on the global stage, with a team of high-caliber performing senior personnel at the helm. Harry and Meghan are parents of 2 young babies and now own their home. They owe the British royal family zero on all levels. And they are my winners because their hunger for the chance to become self-financing and to be able to raise their family in a safe environment without the sword of Damocles above their heads every day has meant their mental health healing has begun to take effect. Service is universal, and the Sussexes are the living embodiment of the impact of valuing yourself first, and everything else flows from that. The Sussexes escaped from the plantation and are now allowed independent thought. It is wonderful to see how they are thriving. The official participants in the Hunger Games tournament will eventually cancel each other out, because hatred and power is at the heart of their thought processes. Only love and light can progress. Anything else just cancels out positivity. May the last one switch off the lights. Everyone elsewhere is doing fine, trying to get through the day without negativity where possible. Ultimately, love will prevail. That's all of the main podcast in terms of rhetoric from me. I have included in the article at the end a list of references. I've gone into a little bit more detail regarding the Duchy of Lancaster and the Duchy of Cornwall, all taken from royal accounts, published accounts. I have included links to all of the royal financial reports for 2019 to 20. I've included a link about the sovereign grant, which makes interesting reading. Really interesting. Well, I found it so. There are also reports on there around travel. Again, quite interesting. So, I hope if you are that way inclined and you want to go through financial reports, the links are there. If you don't want to go through the whole lot, I've put a link to a summary for the sovereign grant, which is an easy read and covers really all of the main headings. And if you want to go into more detail, you can. The links are there as well. Hopefully you've enjoyed that little meander around the Hunger Games, and that you've given some thought to those who are most hungry and why, and those who are not that hungry because they think they will survive, and the government of the day who needs to be on the right side of all of them because they're all protecting each other. And the only successful ones are our couple, Harry and Meghan, who got away from all of that toxic energy and are doing so well. And the best thing they ever did was to leave it all behind. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully you will find the article of interest, and particularly the links at the end regarding the royal accounts. And if you don't want to go through all those, just read the summary. That in itself will tell you how wealthy our royal family is, and that their own private funding, which they never have to call upon, and is in secret accounts elsewhere that they don't have to talk about. Just keep that in mind every time there's an increase, and I feel there will be an increase in their funds in the coming months, even though 2 years have not elapsed with COVID, but because they started to mention it last September, the royal reporters, and it's been mentioned a few times this year, so I suspect there's an increase coming. An increase for having less staff on the payroll, no one visiting any of their properties, or very few have been open for visits like that. All the things that you would expect them to have saved money from, but somehow they're in need of another public handout. As I said, I think in time, I don't know when, how many years or decades that will take, the public will have a chance to vote, which we have not had ever. And when that day comes, it may take more than one vote, it may take a few years, but I do believe the younger generation are not going to see the reason why we have a monarchy. So let them stay hungry, let them keep searching. One by one, they'll cancel each other out. As I use the phrase, crabs in a bucket, that's what they are, and they will destroy one another in time. So that's it for this week. Speak to you soon. Bye. Bye from Ivy.